well, I had a little talk with him and the crew afterwards. I just said, that happens again, you're off the crew. He just froze, first mission, and he just froze. And I put him back to training. I took the engineer and I said, you get out there and work with him. And they did. And I didn't have any trouble with him after that. And my crew was a good crew, except my bombardier. He was not very good. And but other than that.
Did you have the authority to get rid of him if you'd wanted to?
Oh yeah, I did get rid of him. I got rid of him when I got to the point where I was lead aircraft, and I was a deputy lead, and the lead had to abort his mission and went back. So I took over his lead, and they fell out on me. And my bomber called up. He said, "I don't think we better bomb." Lead did. I said, "Why?" And he said, "I forgot my bomb tables." I could have shot him if I had seen him on my 45. So anyway, I had to let one of the others take over, and I got back formation, and I got back squadron, and I told the squadron commander, I said, "I can't lead with this guy." I said, "You got to give me somebody else." And fortunately, the squadron bombardier crew had gone home, and he was staying over there. And they said, "Okay, you can have him." So I took the squadron bombardier, and I flew with him the rest of the time. And you know, you just can't have that. You depend on everybody to do the job, do their job, or you don't get back.
How about the plane parts? Were they pretty available to repair stuff out there?
Yes, we had good ground crew. The minute you had problems, boy, they were on it right away. And they worked 12 hours a day, 24 hours a day if necessary, and they were good. Young kids, but boy, they were sharp. And they knew that their job, and there was no fooling around. And of course, that was where they were. That was their ground. That was their airplane. They wanted to. They were proud of what they did. And
you generally fly the same plane each mission?
Yes, I had what was called a blonde bomber, which I picked out.
What a bomber?
Blonde bomber.
Blonde
my
bomber.
wife was blonde, and I called it the blonde bomber. And the only difference in my airplane, in the normal airplane, in the waist guns were single 50s, and this one had twin 50s, and I thought that was great. And the squadron commander decided he wanted it. But he flew in one mission and he didn't like it. He said it was handled poorly. And I said, "Well, give me that airplane back." And so I did, and I flew with that one most of the time, and it was a good airplane, and had a good ground crew. They were super.
I had a question. I was talking to another B-24 pilot this morning. When you came back in, did they take the guns out and clean them, or did they just clean them right there in the plane?
They just mostly cleaned them right there in the plane.
That's what I thought, but
Yeah.
he was thinking maybe they took them out.
No, I don't think so. They cleaned them right there in the plane, I think, because that's a big job.
Yeah.
The turrets, you couldn't take them out. Well, you could, but it was a big job. And we had a tail turret, we had a nose turret, and a top turret.
Did you all ever get any radar gear?
No, we never had radar. We had very little communications. We flew the Cedar fence and depended on the navigator to tell us where we were. Flew a lot of times. Of course, we'd come back over the hump, and the navigator would let us know, okay, we're over the hump, we're past, and we just let down until we'd break out. And normally you'd have 500 to 1,000 feet below, over the water, and you just break out over water until you got low enough to break out, and then over water, and then fly back into land. And of course, the airstrips are right on the, next to the water, so you just flew down here where your strip was and went land.
How good were the B-24s if you had to ditch in the water? Were they floated enough to get out?
No, they weren't very good.
Really?
No, 17 was the low wing and much easier, stay up longer. The 24, of course, had a high wing, and the body would hit the water and it would usually collapse or break up, and they were very poor. So when in that time when I was worried about having a ditch, I wanted to land on the sand. That was my goal in case something happened. I was worried about a fire because it would get hot. The engine would get hot and it would catch fire. So I'd have to keep shutting it down and bring up the other, and when it get too hot, I had the crew chief checking the engines every time and whatnot. And I had an interesting thing. It was kind of an interesting story. With my crew, nobody was allowed to smoke until I said so, until the engineer said so. So we agreed. So we take off. And you see, the 24 always had leaks. They had a lot of gas leaks that would get down to Bombay and whatnot, and we just wanted to make sure we didn't have any leak before somebody started smoking. And we had a full colonel come down from Bomber Command, and they signed in to me to go on a mission. That's fine. So anyway, we got in there, and he was sitting back in the navigator spot, and we took off, and immediately take off, he lit up a cigarette. Of course, my engineer looked around, snatched the cigarette out of his mouth, put it out. Of course, I didn't know any of this thing was happening, and the colonel wanted to know why you did that. And he said, "We don't smoke until pilot and I give it okay." And so when we got down after the mission, he came to me, and he said, "I didn't mind taking my cigarette, but he didn't need to snatch it out of my mouth." And my engineer was an old timer. He was the old man of the crew. He was 28 years old, and he didn't take any guff from anybody. And
Sergeant?
Yeah, oh yeah, he was a master sergeant, and he just that was the rule we made. And he knew that he and I were the ones that said, "You smoke or you don't smoke." And
well, now in that case, if you have a superior officer on that plane line, are you still?
Oh, yeah,
you're still. You do whatever you can.
Yeah,
Get
I'm the boss. I'm the boss. I'm flying that airplane. And he didn't tell me a thing. He just went along to observe and be able to say he went on a mission. And no, pilot was in charge. Pilot was the commander of the airplane, and that was it. No, but I had a good crew. They were a good bunch of guys. I kept with them, most of them, all the way through. And just about a year now ago, one of my waist gunners who stayed in the service and got commissioned and ended up as lieutenant colonel came back into Colorado Springs about the same time I came back. My last mission there in the Springs tour, and we corresponded all the time, and we became, we were good friends. And he fell off a ladder about a year ago, hit his head, was killed. And he was my last crew member.
Really?
Beside me.